Hello everybody! Infinite Shinjo here, and welcome back to another episode of Let's Talk Anime. And just like the last time, it has been a while since I've recorded, edited, and even posted an episode of Let's Talk Anime, and I really have no excuse. Like I said the last time, time constraints are always a fun thing. Funny thing, I watched the first entry in this video long before I watched the other two. I just watched the other two yesterday. But I'm not going to waste any more time because there is a lot of stuff I need to unpack. So I'm just going to start with Irae. I'm assuming it's pronounced disarray, like the word. So I'm going to go with that. I'm really hoping this poster is from Disarray, because I just typed it in and this came up. So if it's not, oh well. And funny thing, this was recommended to me basically for me to watch it and bash it. So let's do that, I guess. Before I start with the bashing, I will say the animation was very good. But unfortunately, that's all I can give it, because there are so many cons and questions that I had that I don't even know where to start. So let me start at the first thing that I wrote. The first thing that I brought up is that I figured out that it essentially involves Germans. And after I found that out, I was really hoping that they wouldn't bring up Hitler, because that's one of those things that you just don't want to hear being brought up, especially what happened in the world. And keep in mind, I did watch this a long time ago, so the stuff that I wrote is still a little bit fuzzy to me. Like, I just questioned why was that old guy that got killed at the start about. I'm not exactly sure what that was, because I don't really remember. All I do remember is it involves Germans, and there's a whole bunch of stuff that happens. Like, they start with one scene, then they jump to something else. And quite honestly, I couldn't keep any of the characters straight. Now, it's nothing like the usual moe slice of life that I watch, so that could be why. But at the same time, it's just like, what's going on here? And I know that was something that I bring up in other anime that I discuss, that they either over-explain or under-explain. And with Disarray, I don't know, from what I can remember, I think it was something about Germans, but not the actual historical facts that happened in the real world. I don't really remember. Quite honestly, somebody told me to watch this and bash it, but quite frankly, I can't really remember much about the show other than the stuff that I wrote. If I wouldn't have wrote anything, I wouldn't even remember what happens. To be fair, I still don't exactly know what happens. I think I might have only watched the first episode, then halfway through the second episode, it's just like, oh, okay, I don't know what's going on here, so I'm just gonna stop. Which is a fair judgment, because if it is supposed to be loosely based off of the historical facts and it's a historical anime, that's not really something that I prefer to watch. So it might be just because it's something that I'm not used to, and I'm not a major history buff, so I wouldn't be sitting there thinking, oh, this is based off of this event in history. And the crazy thing is, normally when I'm discussing anime, either through this series or another series, I at least bring up or have the opening or ending theme in my mind, just because it's either super catchy or super memorable. I can't even remember this opening theme. There's not really much else I can say. This was given to me to bash, but I can't even remember much about it. It's just not that memorable for me. So let's jump in with the next anime that I'll discuss, and I promise it gets better from here. The next one I'm going to discuss is Katana Maidens, Toji no Miko. I think that's how it's supposed to be pronounced. I'll probably just call it Toji no Miko, just to make it easier, because the title's a little bit long. And funny thing, a little bit of background is when somebody recommended this to me, I feel kind of bad that I never remember who recommends what to me, But when this was recommended to me, I just wrote it down on my notes, same as usual. But in the back of my mind, I was thinking, I'm not looking forward to watching this. And that's because I thought it was another anime that I watched that was called Grand Crest Senki, I believe it was. I remember that it basically opens up with a whole bunch of people with swords, and it's like an old historical sort of anime, which, like I mentioned before, not a big fan of historical anime. So I was kind of dreading watching this because I thought it was something different. But I was not disappointed. The long and short of this anime is basically waifus carrying katanas, or swords. There's not really much more you can ask for. I really like the animation. The plot isn't too complex, but at the same time, it's a little bit complex. The plot of it essentially is there are these beings called Aratama, I believe it's pronounced. I believe there's a Yu-Gi-Oh card by the same name, which is the only reason I remember it. But basically, there's the Aratama and the... I didn't write it down, did I? I think it was called Katanaragi or something like that. Basically the name for all these maidens that have the katanas that fight against them. And it's more or less a battle of good versus evil in a sense. And the show starts with some sort of tournament, yearly tournament that is going to happen. And through it, we get introduced to Kanami and Mai? Is it Mai? I didn't write her name down. I believe her name was Mai. You get introduced to Kanami in particular because she's the main character. You meet all of her classmates. Kanami and Mai go to this tournament that's going to be happening. And it seems like there's 2 representatives from each district that are going to be participating in this tournament. And for once in my life, I was caught off guard. Not only did they have a tournament arc, they finish it in 1 episode. Amazing, right? But before they even start the tournament, they're off sightseeing or whatever, and Kanami runs into this black hair girl that kind of is like, I don't know, you could tell that she's going to be an important character without even reading the title or the plot of this show. But you can kind of tell something's going on with her. And from the instant I saw her, I knew it was going to be Kanami and her in the final round. The girl's name is Hiyori, by the way. But what they do with that is so off the wall. Because, meanwhile, I'm going all over the place with describing this show. But there's also this group that's watching it, the Origami family. Weird, now that it's based off of the paper folding technique. But, hey, whatever. But there's the Origami family that's watching this thing. The head of it won the tournament last year. And she has like bodyguards or whatever. And the finals is Hiyori versus Kanami. And then, without any provocation, Hiyori just darts over to the head of the Origami family to strike her. But I believe it was Kanami that blocks her. And it basically just ended up being one of those things where, well, I failed to kill the leader of the Origami family. Now they know that we're trying to get them, so we gotta be on the lam. And the reason that surprised me is essentially the tournament ends with no winner. Which, I guess it kind of makes sense because it seems like a Yu-Gi-Oh sort of thing to do where the protagonist and the main rival are battling much like Yuya and Kite. And the fight is either called off or whatever for whatever various reason. And then it ends up being one of those things where main character has to grow. They're going to face off later on in the series, probably at the climax or the very end of it. It's kind of cool. Did have my money on Kanami for winning that fight though. But on the topic of Kanami, I honestly thought she was going to be a bit of an annoying character because she's essentially the Genki girl of the show. Which, not saying it's a bad thing to have an overly enthusiastic character as your main character because it works with Laid Back Camp, but it works so well with that show because she has a foil to bounce off of. Somebody that's more subdued than her. Somebody that's not as expressive as her. And that's where Hiyori comes in. And Mai to an extent for the first part of the show. And I'm sure that there's an OST for this show. I'm gonna look it up. But in episode 1, when the tournament first starts and all of these battles are beginning, that music there is super jazzy. And I'm not really somebody that listens to jazz music, but I really like it. I'm gonna see if I can try and find it and use it as background music, because I really like it. And the last pro that I can mention is about Hiyori. I already mentioned about Konami, and at first I was kind of half and half on her character, but now I'm starting to appreciate her a little bit more because she actually has a little bit of a layer to her. But the thing with Hiyori is I saw her in episode 1, episode 2 comes along, they're on the lam, and so I'm just sitting here thinking, so is she gonna be the stereotypical edgy character, edgy girl that you see in every show? Because it's just like, she has the black hair, she has the black outfit, but it's one of those characters that you can just look at them and say, yep, they're the edgy one. Because it's always just like, it's like in high school when you go through your emo phase and your friends are all like, yeah, we should have a pizza party this weekend. My parents aren't going to be home. And they can, and they're just all talking about, yeah, we're going to have a great time. This is going to be a great party. And then your friends over there like, does it really matter in the end? Everybody's just going to get what's coming to them. We're all going to die. And it's just like, I don't want to say killjoy, but that's the best way I can describe it. But Hiyori's, at the same time, when she is edgy, she's complex, because I know about her past with the Origami family. I accidentally looked it up when I was looking up the dub voices for these characters, which, very good dub choice, by the way. Wait, I didn't watch the dub. Crap! I just looked up the dub voices just to see, because I didn't realize there was a dub. But regardless, I found out what's going on with the Origami family and her, but I don't want to say anything for fear of spoilers and the fact that I don't want to say it without knowing for sure. But with that in mind, I do like the added touch of Hiyori asking Konami, what are your real intentions for traveling around with me? Because it's just like, Konami is just here like, I want to travel around with you so we can fight next time. And Hiyori's just like, I wonder what that means. It's just like one's overthinking and one's underthinking. It's hilarious. And the cons. There are not many cons, although I did notice that there is some strange CG in this show at times. Like in episode 2 when Mai's leaving the vehicle to go find Hiyori and Konami? When she's going to find them and she leaves the car or the cab or whatever, there's some strange CG at times. And the other thing, not really groundbreaking whether it goes one way or the other, but I'm just wondering if the other characters at Konami's school actually matter. Because it's just like Konami and Mai are here, they go off to the tournament, and then it just seems like they up and forget the rest of the students, which it doesn't really matter because they don't really get much focus anyway, so it's not like they really take away from the story. But every other complaint that I might have had with the show was answered in the show. Like, I was wondering about the Aratama, if that was something back in the day and not now, or what. And then I was wondering why there's a tournament. Then I realized, oh, it's a yearly tournament. It's just something that has to happen. But as a show itself, I give it a very, very emphatic thumbs up. I really like this show. Not sure if I'm going to continue watching it. If I do, it'll just be in my spare time anyway. But I want to finish off Hunter x Hunter first before I even can devote my time to watching anything else. And now for the final entry in this episode. And the final entry is it wrong to try and pick up girls in a dungeon? Or, as I'm going to refer to it as in this video, Danmachi, because that's mostly what it's known for. but I'm not really sure if I can even try to explain the plot. Basically, there's a dude, Belle, and Hestia, and it's regular fantasy travel sort of stuff. I feel like if you would just look at the poster, then you could basically figure out what the show is about. Now, for the things that I like, first thing that I like is Belle. And it's strange to think and strange to say out loud, but outside of maybe Yu-Gi-Oh! Or Pokemon, a lot of the time it's just like a protagonist to me is not really somebody that I would say I would go out of my way to like. Like, for example, in Laid Back Camp, it's not really the best example, but in Laid Back Camp, Rin's supposed to be the primary protagonist, but I end up liking Nadeshiko better. When it comes to New Game, for example, Aoba Suzukaze is supposed to be the protagonist, but I end up liking Hifumi more. There are a lot more situations where I don't like the protagonist and like a side character more, but I actually really like Belle. He's not somebody that's overly loud and in your face like Asta, or somebody overly optimistic like, I don't know, every Genki Girl protagonist. He's just a real dude. And I also like the parallel that this show has to Konosuba. I'm gonna have to check. I probably won't post anything because you guys probably know the answer already. But I'm curious which show came out first, Danmachi or Konosuba? Because their base concepts are very similar. It's just a random dude just doing whatever, palling around with a goddess. In this case being Hestia. And even in the first episode, I believe it was, that she mentioned about a useless goddess. And I immediately thought of Aqua. It's one of those things there. It's essentially a meme that Aqua is useless. But I guess for some reason, Belle and Hestia are living together. And it seems like it's a secret from everybody else. I'm not really sure why. But I'm not going to question it because it's essentially an isekai where somebody doesn't die. But with episode 1, no, it was episode 2, where Belle was in that bar or whatever, and the girl that saved him in the first episode, I think her name was Ainz? No, that doesn't sound right, because Ainz is the one from Overlord. Whatever, the blonde girl that has a German-sounding name. When her group of adventurers come in, and they start talking about him, I'm just thinking, how is this gonna end? Because he's literally right there. What's he gonna do? Go over to the guy and punch him in the face? But then, the more he's just sitting there suffering because they're bad-mouthing him with him right there. And then when he walks out, my heart just broke. Because it's just like, dude, I feel you on that one. People talk about me behind my back all the time, I'm sure. So saying it when I'm there hurts even more. But I guess I should talk about the other big part of the show. Hestia. And Hestia ties in to my only con that I have. And that is, why is Hestia's design so revealing? Like, if I was just watching this show without any prior knowledge of Danmachi, and I would just see that on the screen, I'd be thinking, excuse me, you mind putting some clothes on? And I mean, I'm sure that it's for marketing purposes that she's basically almost nude. But it's still kind of weird for me. But with that being said, I really do like Hestia. It's funny because this enforces that she's a lot like Aqua. Because she mentioned about how she's useless like Aqua. And in the first 2 episodes that I've seen, she acts like a spoiled child. She acts like a child that's just like, huh, you're not paying attention to me. And it's just like, okay, that is interesting because I didn't expect that from her character. I figured that she'd be just the character that gets into awkward sexual moments with Belle, which did kind of happen in the first few episodes, but whatever. But she did get a couple of laughs out of me when I was watching the show. And that's partly in thanks to Lucy Christian for voicing her dub voice. I really enjoyed the voice, and I couldn't put my finger on who it was at first because I didn't look it up. Then when I found out it was Lucy Christian, the same person that voices Ochako in My Hero Academia, everything just fit together perfectly, and that's probably why I like her character so much. It seems like Lucy Christian is voicing another character who is in love with the protagonist, but probably doesn't know it yet. Is that a common thing for her? I'm not sure. But when it's all said and done, I really enjoyed Danmachi as well. I actually enjoyed a lot of the stuff that I watched for this episode. The only one being Disarray that I didn't enjoy. Or didn't remember, I should say. But like Toji no Miko, I'm gonna wait until I finish Hunter x Hunter to watch this. Especially since the second season of Danmachi is happening right now anyway. It'll be better for me to just wait and then binge the whole second season and maybe 1, 2, 3 goes. But yeah, I really enjoyed this anime. And it's kind of weird. I don't want to say that the suggestions that I've been getting are terrible, but it's weird for me to watch an anime that somebody recommended for me to discuss on my channel, and it actually be good for a change. Not saying the stuff that I watched before has been bad, but it's either been in one of two categories. One, that I didn't like it or didn't care for it, or two, that there's so many episodes that I'm not going to continue watching it. But with Toji no Miko and Danmachi, I really enjoy both of them, and I'm going to continue watching them whenever I get a minute. But that is going to do it for today's episode of Let's Talk Anime. And if you have any suggestions, leave them down in the comment section. I do still have a bunch of suggestions to discuss. And it looks like for next episode might be Kenjin Amago, Fairy Gone, and Bang Dream? Maybe? I'm not really sure. I know at the same time somebody wanted me to discuss Fire Force and Dr. Stone, but I'm going to watch both of those because I'm really interested in both of those. But I'm not going to say, yeah, I'm going to discuss them for Let's Talk Anime yet. Because by the time I get around to discussing them for Let's Talk Anime, the season will probably already be over. But hit that like button if you enjoyed. Subscribe if you haven't, and I will see you in the next episode. Momentai.